Basically, what I was saying was the historical perspective of the Kyoto Protocol when it began in 1997, where it is now in terms of accomplishments or failures or both, and why is it taking so long by the United Nations and the 200 some countries of the United Nations to come up with a replacement of Kyoto Protocol which expires at the end of this year. So I think there are both positive and negative parts of this situation. The positive part is that all the nations are getting together at many conferences, from Bonn to Copenhagen to Cancun to Durban and then to Rio de Janeiro. They met 5 times during the 5 years to try to come up with a strategy for the next treaty protocol that will replace Kyoto Protocol. And I'm very positive that there is a consensus now that they know exactly how to proceed in a collaborative manner, so that there is no distinction between industrialized or developed countries and developing countries like China, India, because as you know, China is now the largest emitter of greenhouse gas emissions. They surpassed the United States after so many years. So they realize that they have their responsibility. It's good for their own country, for their own people to reduce carbon dioxide emissions and improve energy efficiencies in buildings, in industry, in transportation, for their own good of the people, for their own environment. So they are using more renewable energy now than they did before by a factor of 4 or 6 or even 8. So they are using solar, wind, etc. in lieu of coal production, etc. for electricity. China is doing. And similar things is happening in India and Brazil and other developing countries. So there is optimism on one side. The pessimism still continues because it takes so long for these leaders to come up to a consensus. But it's happening, and within the next 5 years they should have a treaty which would replace Kyoto and at the same time will reduce the global temperature rise by a couple of degrees, so that we are not threatened with all these weather-related calamities like hurricanes, tornadoes, typhoons, as well as flooding, more rain in one area and drought conditions in Africa, South America and Asia. So I think as an eternal optimist, I feel that we are on the right track. We need leadership not only at the national level but also at the local level, because the grassroots organizations like small cities, communities, large cities can do energy efficiency, renewables and greenhouse gas emissions reductions much more in a timely manner. They have the resources, they have the leadership available, and they can show that cities and counties and small governments are capable of doing these complex things without the help of federal governments in many cases, because national governments are slow in moving while local governments can move fast. So time is of essence. We need to do it. We can't wait. As my grandfather used to tell me, son, if you have to do something tomorrow, do it today. If you have to do something today, do it now. Do not procrastinate. If you believe in something, do it. So I think that's the motto that all the countries as well as the local governments and state and national governments are taking very seriously, and they are trying to do what they can to avoid any future disasters. So that was the basic theme of my presentation.